It's a cold day and I've just been cozying up reading about the end of democracy. I am about 1/3 of the way through Cassidy Hutchinson's book, Enough. If you forgot the context, Cassidy Hutchinson is a lifelong Republican who worked for Donald Trump and has since flipped on him. This book so far is about the transition from believing in him to not believing in him. The ability for people to make the intellectual transition that she is making in this book is of critical importance, important enough that I think liberals should hold their nose and take their frickin' medicine in trying to understand how a person can make this shift. I made a video about this before, and one of the comments that I got repeatedly is like, she's profiting from this, or she's complicit in this, or she should have turned sooner. To be clear, I think those criticisms are valid, but as someone with degrees in philosophy, I think it is important to remember that things that are true exist in a context. Philosophers have all these little toys to help us understand the world. One is the pile of sand. Add a grain of sand, is it a pile? No. Add another grain of sand, is it a pile? No. Add 10 more grains of sand, when does it become a pile? It's sort of an unclear thing, and thinking about that helps us understand something about how we categorize things in the world. The media would have us believe that the world exists in two clean piles of sand. There are the liberals, and then there are the conservatives, and they're just in two different discrete categories with no bell curve or wiggle room or any sort of transitionary period. Like Newton's laws, this is too simple an understanding of the world. And at least in my life, I made a transition from conservative to liberal. And the way that I did that was more like the Sorites paradox pile of sand, grains of sand transition than an on-off light switch that often is how we think about categories in the world. In fact, I know that just showing these two books juxtaposed is pissing someone off on some side of the political aisle. Isn't it a great era that we live in? Since paradigm shifts are less like light switches and more like piles, it is incumbent on us to make room for people like Cassidy Hutchinson, not at the head of the table, but somewhere at the table, because we need an off-ramp for radicalization that we are witnessing in this country. So what are the criticisms that she's profiting, or that she was complicit, or that it's too late? For this, a toy of my own creation, canceling the gauze, or canceling the tourniquet. Forget the pile of sand for a second. You're bleeding out in a hospital, and you need wound bandages, tourniquets, gauze. If you stop to ask the doctor, or the doctor stops to investigate on whether or not he's using environmentally friendly gauze, you literally could die. And since it's a philosophy experiment, we can just stipulate it. We can say that it is conceivable that there are time-sensitive situations wherein adhering to our sense of moral idealism will in fact lead to worse outcomes. I didn't invent this way of thinking. I just like the gauze analogy. This is often called utilitarianism, or sometimes called pragmatism. After the insurrection failed, we have been attempting to hold the man responsible accountable and failed on every single freaking front. Democracy is bleeding out in front of us. It is not the time to question the environmental friendliness of the gauze. This woman has more of a spine than 99% of Republican men who disapprove of Trump in private and will not say so in public.